If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Blog Talk Radio.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and welcome to another here on blogtalk.com's Golf Talk Live. And, of course, it's about midpoint through August 14th. We're getting close to the end of the traditional summer months, and the kids are getting ready to go back to school, and I'll be the first one to be glad to see some of them go, but that's another story. But anyways, welcome to the show tonight. I got a couple of great guests coming on tonight from GolfMDs. One of them was actually on the show about a week ago with Cindy Miller and I on the Women of Golf show that we do every Tuesday morning, and invited him on to Golf Talk Live. He's going to be bringing a guest on with him as well, who's never been on the program, but looking forward to talking to him as well. And, of course, I'm talking about Alex Weber. He's the founder and CEO of GolfMDs.com. And along with him is Nick Chertock, Director of Community at GolfMDs. They'll be joining me here in just a few minutes. But got those guys coming on. We're going to talk a little bit about GolfMDs and what it's all about. But we're just going to talk some golf tonight. What's happening in the industry right now, and what's happening in golf in general. And just thought we would just sort of a general conversation tonight, just for something a little bit different. But of course, I'm not going to do the Coach's Corner tonight. And I think I've mentioned this a couple times in the previous shows. Basically, what I'm doing is I talked about a series that's coming up called Plan for Success. I'm getting ready, so I'm kind of giving everybody a little bit of a break and kind of getting my groups together, if you will, for the various topics. And we're going to be covering everything from the fitness side of things, a little bit more detailed, and nutrition, of course, how important that is, having a well-balanced nutritional meal plan for playing some better golf. That's very, very important. Also, we're going to talk about the equipment side of things, instruction, of course, can't leave that out, and we're going to touch on the mental side. Now, of course, when the group was on last Thursday, of course, I had a great panel on. Scott Millman, Bob Foreman, and Lloyd Higley were on last week, and we had a pretty good discussion about the mental side of things, but we're going to get even further in depth with that in the program as well in my Plan for Success, and that's going to be starting in September, so I'm getting ready for that. So I'm just kind of winding down the summer program, if you will. But anyways, as I said, I got a couple of great guys coming on tonight, and we're going to talk some golf. But just to remind everybody that the broadcast is live every Thursday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. Central Time. I'm going to have a little shorter program tonight since I'm not doing the Coach's Corner, but we'll see how things go with the conversation. But it's normally every Thursday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. Central Time, and you can find out how to tune in by going to blogtalkradio.com, and if you type in the search key above and type in Golf Talk Live, that'll take you right to the home page, and the live broadcast streams from there. And if for any reason, if you're not able to tune into the live broadcast, you can do so at any point after the show has ended. It is all programs are auto-recorded during the live broadcast, so if you happen to not be able to tune in during that time, you got other things going on, not a problem. You can just go to blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live and just scroll down through the on-demand section and pick up any of the programs that you might have missed. But we hope that you're able to tune in with us live. It makes it a little bit more interesting and more fun to kind of hear what's happening. And as always, I open the phones up, and if you're interested in calling in during the broadcast and you want to join in the discussion, you're more than happy to do so. The number is area code 646-716-4667. That's 646-716-4667. Or if you have questions or comments about the program, you can email me personally at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. And also, if you're in the golf industry, maybe you're a teaching pro or somebody that has a great product or service that you think would be of interest to the audience, you can also reach me at that email as well, and that's ted.golftalklive@gmail.com, and we'll talk about getting you on the program as well. Also, always get updated on social media. You can visit the Facebook page at facebook.com/golftalkliveblog. Make sure you have the blog on the end. And, of course, I don't do a lot of tweets, but nevertheless, I appreciate you. If you want updates on the program, you can also do it through Twitter. And my Twitter handle is Ted and Buck CEO, and CEO, of course, is in cap letters. And I appreciate all of the new followers that I've had in the last few weeks. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks. Also, if you want to check out the Golf Talk Live website, you can do so at www.golftalkliveblog.com. And want to obviously congratulations to Rory McIlroy for winning the PGA Championship last week. Good job, Rory, and now that's, of course, his fourth major. We'll maybe talk a little bit about that tonight when the guys come on. Certainly just having a phenomenal year, 2 majors under his belt, and just seems to be unstoppable at this time, and I hope he keeps it going. It certainly makes it interesting and exciting for golf, and obviously in other news, Tiger's, of course, withdrawn from the Ryder Cup. He's not going to be participating this year. Not really surprised. Tiger really hasn't been much as he normally has, and I just think he's having a lot of issues. We hope to see him back soon. Maybe another Cup, but needless to say, certainly happy for Rory McIlroy, and hope he keeps it going. Certainly making some exciting golf. But as I said, one of the things that I'm going to be doing in the next few weeks, we'll be starting the Plan for Success series on the Coach's Corner panel. And one of the reasons why we wanted to do, there's so many elements, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of that tonight, I think, but things in golf, and we want to try and open the doors, if you will, for the actor out there. Those have a great formula for that, and we want to try and bring some of that to the program and make it interesting for people to tune in and help their game. But so that's one of the things that I want to do. In 2015, I'm going to be looking at doing a little more traveling. So I'm going to be doing some live broadcasts in my travels and make that a little bit more interesting for me as well, just to be able to broadcast from different locations. So that'll make it a little bit more fun and interesting for me as well, just to some of the different courses and resorts and that around the country, and do some live broadcasts from there. So that'll be interesting and fun. And also I've got some more, as I mentioned a few weeks back, I was going to start doing some news on behalf of South Coast Golf Guide, which I've talked about here a number of times, and of course Jonathan Laird, who's been on the program a couple of times now. We're still going to be doing that. We're just trying to coordinate some of the pros and that to come on the program. It's been a little difficult, everybody on holidays and that through the summer months, so we're trying to coordinate that. But I'm actually going to have another gentleman, I believe Rick Wolf from Tiger Point, from the area, that's going to be coming on and talking about his facility here in a couple of weeks' time, and a few weeks after that, we'll have another group that'll be coming on. But want to be able to do that. There's some great golf here in the southeastern part of the United States, and really want to start showcasing, get all of that in Jonathan's South Coast Golf Guide. So make sure, if you have a chance, go on the internet, and you can go to southcoastgolfguide.com and check out his online guide there coming up soon. But also, if you want to get one of the hard copy versions, if you happen to be coming down to the area, anywhere from Mississippi right over here to the Gulf Coast of Florida, you can get a copy at most of your premium golf courses, not in the area, resorts and so forth, and also some of the condominiums and so forth carrying it as well. But if you aren't in the area right now and you're planning on coming down here for a vacation sometime, either in the fall or maybe in the new year, and you want to get your hot little hands on a copy just to see what some of the great golf in the area is, you can go to southcoastgolfguide.com and get in touch with Jonathan there. His email address is jonathan@southcoastgolfguide.com, and he'll be more than happy to arrange to get a copy sent out to you wherever you might be. So always some great golf down here in the Southeast, and you can get a lot of the great courses that are in this area. As I said, right through to Mississippi. There's some, I think about 100 courses, if I'm not mistaken, in his guide in total between the 4 or 5 states that are included, and just some great facilities, some locally right here in Panama City Beach, Florida, where I am right now. And so you want to check that out. And if you're interested, if you're somebody in the golf business, particularly want to capitalize in this area, and you're interested maybe advertising in Jonathan's publication, he's been doing this for a little over 20 years now. So great publication, great, very professionally done. You can also reach him at jonathan@southcoastgolfguide.com, and you can certainly email him there and get in touch with them that way if you're interested in some advertising as well. But make sure that you check it out, guys, and also go on to Facebook, South Coast Golf Guide, and throw a few likes Jonathan's way as well. I appreciate supporting the magazine. And I always like to, do what I can with the program to help promote other businesses in the golf industry or other golf professionals. And had a lot of great people on this program in the last year and a half, and want to continue to grow that, grow that forum, if you will, by having more and more of the teacher professionals. I think it's, whatever we can do as an industry to help promote the golf teacher profession, I'm more than happy to jump on board with that. And also with the other program that I'm doing, the Women of Golf, that Cindy Miller and I are, of course, co-hosting together. That's every Tuesday morning, Eastern time, at 9 a.m. Eastern time, for an hour. Her and I have been doing that now for a little while. And that's really to go after the female market out there. That's a very fast growing market. In fact, most of the statistics will show you that the majority of growth in the golf industry in the last few years has actually been in the female market, which I'm very, very happy about and very excited to see. It's great that the ladies are getting out there. In fact, Cindy has been playing going to be playing in a tournament. In fact, I think it just started today officially up in French Lick, Indiana. The Legends Championship, of course, her and if you tune into Tuesday's program, Barb Moxness were paired up in the Pro-Am, I believe it was, or practice round on Tuesday as partners. And I received an email from her a little while ago just asking how she did, and of course they won their match. So very happy about that. Congratulations, Cindy and Barb. And a lot of great legends. Nancy Lopez is there. Jan Stevenson, of course, is playing in that. Just too many really to mention, but a lot of great lady professionals that have given a lot to this game. And that's another area that I really want to get behind and support. So that's why, we've done that program, started that program as well. And it's, of course, growing and in leaps and bounds, and we appreciate all the support that we get through the many lady professionals that are helping spreading the word on that program. So I hope you'll tune into that program as well, and you go to blogtalkradio.com/women of golf to get that program every Tuesday morning. And it also has an on-demand section, so if you're not able to tune in Tuesday mornings live, then you're able to go in and visit the on-demand section there and listen to any of the broadcasts. And actually, I really strongly suggest you do. Cindy has a great program great series called Own Your Game. And it really got into detail about the mental side of golf. And I think that's a very underrated area of the game. For a long time, certainly a lot of people are talking about it now in more recent years, but it's an area really that has not been fully tapped, and I think it's going to be one of these things that just over time the golf industry is going to be pushing more and more to get into that. So certainly glad to do that, and we appreciate the program. It looks like my guys are here, so let me just bring them out here. As I said, my guests tonight are from GolfMDs.com, the founder and CEO, of course, Alex Weber, and, of course, the director of community at GolfMDs.com is Nick Chertock. So let me bring the guys out here, and we'll talk a little golf. All right, good evening, guys. How are you doing? Welcome to Golf Talk Live.
Ted, doing well. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. This must be Alex and Nick as well, right?
I am here.
Nick, how are you doing?
To you, Ted.
good to talk to you, Nick. Of course, you've never been on the program yet, so I'm glad you were able to join us this evening, and appreciate that you follow the program as well. Guys, let's just talk a little bit, a little bit about GolfMDs, and then we're going to talk some golf in general. I think the listeners will enjoy that. So, Alex, why don't you just lead us off here and just talk a little bit about the concept between GolfMDs, how it sort of came about, and how you and Nick sort of got involved.
Of course. So it actually came about, I'd say 3 years ago or so. I was new to the Bay Area out here where we're based in San Jose, California. And I played a little bit of competitive golf growing up and got into the business world. And as a young professional, you don't have a whole lot of time to work on your game. So I wanted to find a teaching professional, more specifically a short game expert to work with. And like I do for really any product or service, or like most consumers do, I started my search on the internet and went to Google and threw in San Jose, California golf instructors, and I was really looking for a place where I could easily search through all the options that were in my area, maybe read some reviews, watch some videos, compare pricing, and get a good feel for who's around me and what my options were. And obviously that was absent. And over the course of the past 3 years, we've realized that there's a great need for something like that to bring the loose collection of teaching professionals around the country and bring them onto one platform and create a brand that consumers can recognize as a place to find quality instruction. And so it's really I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
I was just going to mention that it's a multi-sided platform, right? So we cater to both the golfer side or the consumer side and the golf professional side. So from the consumer standpoint, it's what I just said. It's that search engine, if you will, for teaching professionals in your area. You can filter it based on a wide variety of criteria, whether it's a star rating, would include our student reviews, different certifications, price points, expertise, experience, a lot of different things. And then you can book and track your lessons through the platform. And then on the golf professional side, it's really an online tool to reach new students and run your current business a little more efficiently. So with features like online scheduling and email marketing, we have a CRM built in that enables professionals to keep better track of their students and really understand the different demographics within their student base so that they can market to them a little more efficiently. And we've been in development now for about a year and a half, and we're just starting to get some great traction in different markets throughout the country, and it's starting to grow quite a bit. So we're really excited about where things are going.
And one of the things that kind of intrigued me a little bit about it is you kind of hit it on the head. There's a lot of people out there, of course, that may be looking for an instructor in their area, and one of the problems that I've seen for a long time is there's certainly a lot of great instructors from West Coast right over here to the East Coast, but the problem is everybody's sort of doing their own thing. They've got their own websites and stuff, which is great. In today's market, consumers don't want to have to go, sifting through, 50,000 different websites. They want to be able to go to one place, look at the information, kind of compare what it is that they're looking for, and make a selection. So it's a timing issue, really, in today's market. So really what you've done is you've done a lot of the legwork for the average consumer out there. Would that be a pretty fair assumption?
Yeah. I mean, I think you pretty much hit it right there on the head. It's a situation where in today's market, consumers are lazy, if you want to call it, or spoiled. I mean, the information is so readily available that they're not going to go out of their way and really search too hard for something. And it needs to be right there in front of them and very easy for them to find. And And we would never discourage any teaching professional or any small business, for that matter, to not have their own website. I think
sure.
Everyone talks about the importance of a first impression. Well, a lot of times this day and age, that first impression is online, right? So it's certainly important to have your own website, but the sheer size of the internet, right, over 1 trillion web pages out there, it's difficult to get noticed, right? So that's why you've seen umpteen industries create that sort of brand where they bring together a loose collection of competitors, if you want to call it, and bring them onto the same platform to give them a larger marketing voice, enabling them to reach more of their target market. So if you're talking about hotels or tea times or airlines or whatever it is, you have Expedia, you have Travelocity, you have Golf Now, you have Open Table for restaurants, there's Care.com for babysitters, right? So it's really no different from what most other industries have done. We've just seen a big need for it in the golf instruction part of the industry, and that's why we decided to run with it.
Why do you think, let me ask you, and then we'll get into some just some general golf, but why do you think the golf industry, and Nick, by all means, feel free to jump in at any point, why do you think the golf industry seems to be, in a lot of ways, very slow to move in the technological direction compared to many other industries out there?
Nick, you want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, I think golfers are traditionalists for the most part. It's a traditional game. You've got a lot of late adopters. Even a lot of the young people who play would consider themselves old-fashioned, although not as much as when I started playing maybe 20 years ago. So I think, here I'm here in San Francisco. When I walk out of my office, unless I go over to where the bankers hang out, I'm just hanging out with a bunch of young coder tech types, not a lot of golfers in that group. So the early adopters are not really into golf necessarily. And so you end up having the question of, well, who would be the one to build a platform like this? It would really have to be somebody who's both passionate about golf and about new technology and understanding the power of an online platform, and there's a lot of groundwork that has to be laid before the thing can really have any value. So it takes somebody like Alex who just has a lot of hustle and is willing to spend years building this thing up, a lot like the early days of LinkedIn or Facebook. People looked at those businesses and said they didn't really quite get it, and then by the time they're big enough that people got it, well, it was sort of too late to try to compete with them. So I think that's the goal, and it's made possible by an industry that is a little bit slow to adopt to new technologies.
Do you think, guys, that the younger generation coming up now, the sort of the newer golfers, if you will, they're just sort of being introduced to the game, do you think that they're going to just because they are so used to this type of technology and access, that they're going to sort of drive the industry more than, say, some of the golfers that have been 20-plus years as we have, Nick? Do you think that is going to start happening a little faster pace?
I don't know how quickly it will happen. I think eventually it will. I think in golf, most of the decisions are still right now being made by an older crop of people compared to other industries. But, eventually everyone will come around because, the golfers who are proud that they've never used a computer, eventually they're not going to be around anymore. So, Alex, what do you think about that?
Well, I think, I think, look, the game of golf is not going to grow with the baby boomers, right? I mean, that's already set in stone, if you will. The game of golf is going to grow by getting, in my opinion, 2 or 3 segments of the market more involved, and that's obviously kids, the sort of young professional, and women. And
right.
I think, just going back to your first question, Ted, why is the industry so slow? Some parts are slow, some parts aren't. Right? I mean, if you look at the equipment side of things, they're certainly not slow, right? I mean, it's been unbelievable, the different advancements in the last even 20 years. And I think it's just the industry really hasn't had to make the adjustment in terms of keeping up with the instruction side of things up until now. We're seeing the game of golf go through some different transitions, if you want to call it, and obviously that's being led by the bursting of this equipment bubble. But I think now that the Tiger, whether you want to believe it or not, Tiger Woods had a phenomenal effect on the game of golf.
Sure.
I grew up right in the heart of it, and whether he has an effect now, you could talk about it till the cows come home, but he certainly did, and that's starting to fizzle out. So now it's what do we do to keep those that initially came into the game that aren't doing it as much? What do we do to get them back into the game, or to get them to enjoy it more? And our whole philosophy is that people are going to play more if they're having more fun, and people have more fun when they're better at something, right? So really the key to growing the game of golf, I don't care if you're 80 years old or if you're 3, it's to make sure that people are getting better. And the only way that I know that's going to happen is through working with someone who can teach you how to get better, and that's obviously the teaching professional.
Right. Where do you guys think, and let's get into, the golf industry, and we'll talk a little bit more about the equipment and that in just a second here, but where do you think the game is right now, in your opinion? Either one of both of you, Alex, if you want to start off, or Nick, doesn't matter.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's in a state that it's never been in before. It's as cool as it's ever been, and it's kind of sexy. Before it wasn't. It was that old country club stuffy game, and now it's not. You got Ricky Fowler and Rory battling on Sundays and fist pumping competitors, and that stuff didn't used to happen. And you have you have Top Golf. We could spend the whole show talking about Top Golf. I mean, that is absolutely blowing up in every market around the country. They can't build them fast enough. I think they have 11 or so locations. Last I read, they're going to double that in the next 12 months. And unless I'm mistaken, I also think it's roughly 14,000 or so people a day are on average are coming through all of their, not each facility, but all of them combined. And I'd be willing to bet that a handful, a large majority of those people are not considered regular golfers. And so I think it's great for the game of golf long term, because now we're starting to introduce the game to people that wouldn't just go by their local driving range. But now that a couple of friends brought them along, they can have a few drinks. There's some music. Sure, it's not traditional golf, but it's a great way, in my opinion, to get people interested in it.
Yeah, I think we'll see more.
You made a valid point. Go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say, I think we'll see more alternative ways that people can enjoy the game that are not necessarily on the course, playing 18 holes, whether it be shorter rounds or being able to do something like Top Golf, where you're, as an industry, that still drives demand for golf clubs and instruction. It may mean changes and continued contraction when it comes to courses. I mean, we're not really seeing new courses open up in America, and there was so much overbuilding that took place in the 90s. It may be a while before that whole trend reverses itself, but the game itself, I think, is alive and well. If you just think about the type of people who talk about golf and tune in, at Sports Center, they lead off with golf all the time now. When I started playing, you would never see golf talked about, as a major sport. Maybe for a major, like on a Sunday when Nicklaus won in '86, it was a big national story. But as far as golf's level of coolness, I think is pretty high right now. And so I'm not worried about the game itself. I do think that there's pockets of the industry that had growth year after
exactly
year.
Right. I think one of the problems that has been in the golf for a long, long time is the fact that it's been, and it's been perceived as a sport for a long, long time, and really not open to the general public. Even though anybody could play, it's an expensive sport compared to many of the other sports. As an example, you can go to virtually any sporting goods store and you can pick up for next to nothing a tennis racket, and you can go out and get a few, a sleeve or two of tennis balls, and pretty much go to any public, tennis court and play for next to nothing or nothing at all. Whereas golf, even your cheapest set of golf clubs, and then to go and play at one of your facilities, takes a little bit more of an investment. So, for the average person out there, I think that's something in even though they've done some things to open that market up, and Alex, you touched on this, getting some of the junior golfers and young professionals in there, they've really got to start doing more to opening the door. And there's some great programs. Don't get me wrong, First Tee is one that's out there that's opening doors. But I think what they've got to do is they've got to sort of shed that skin of and they have been doing it over the last few years, of sort of an elitist sport. The country club model, if you will, in my opinion, I think is starting to fall by the wayside. There's always going to be, a handful around in comparison to what's out there now. But I think people are gravitating, especially the young professionals, are gravitating away from that sort of lifestyle. They want to travel. They want to be able to play, some great courses, and there's thousands of them around the world, literally, at a high caliber level. So, it's a matter of the industry needs to start refocusing a little bit more on and opening new markets that maybe haven't been there before. Any thoughts or comments, guys?
Well, yeah, I think, you talked about tennis and soccer. The difference between a lot of those and golf, obviously, it's easier to go and take a soccer ball to a field or a tennis ball to a court. But golf provides a lot of other things that those sports don't. And I think people like the fact that they're not going to go sweat for 20 minutes and then leave. It's going to be a nice 2-hour 9-hole or 4, which is 5 is the new 4-hour round of golf.
Right.
And there's business opportunities, there's social opportunities.
Right.
I think people like that. So, there's a lot of things that are happening, and I think a lot of it's kind of guinea pig-ish, and let's try and see if it works. But we have the 15-inch hole, and some courses doing soccer golf or frisbee golf. And I understand the reasoning behind a lot of that, right? I understand that the courses need to make money in order to stay open. But I'm not necessarily sold that that's the way to grow the game.
No.
I think people, one of the great things about golf that brings people back is that you're never going to master it, right? There's always work to be done. It's difficult. And because of that, there's this addictive nature to it where people know that they're better than they are. They've felt that great shot, right? And they just want to figure out, how do I do it? How do I do it more often? And you see it every day you go on driving ranges. People are willing to listen to their 20 handicapper friends tell them how to swing a golf club because they're thinking, wow, maybe he'll help me. But we all know that's just a recipe for disaster. So I hate to keep pushing it back to this, but I think there needs to be a major emphasis now now that the whole equipment side of the industry is you know, kind of capped out of the bag, right? We realize that it's not bringing me to a new level of golf. There needs to be a huge emphasis on the importance of learning how to swing that new technology, right? And so I go ahead.
Yeah, you know, we talked about that. You and I talked briefly when you were on the Women of Golf show with Cindy and I the other week. You know, I think you and I kind of, and I'm sure Nick probably agrees as well. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I certainly love the equipment. I think it's interesting. I think a lot of the technology out there is certainly very exciting. But something that has always troubled me a little bit is, and again, I understand it's part of the marketing game, but what's troubled me a little bit about that side of the business is that there's been such a big push in the last decade or so for this equipment to come out there. And the problem is that, and again, I realize it's part of the marketing, but, you know, the emphasis, well, you know, an extra 10, 15, 20 yards or straighter drives and things like that.
Right.
And that's all well and said and done. But the truth of the matter is you and I know, unless you know how to, you know, swing the club properly, you know, or utilize that. It's a tool is what it is. And that it's bothered me a little bit that the manufacturers have really put a big push on that. And I see the same mistake all the time. It's starting to change now, granted, but for a long time, people were going out every year and getting the latest and greatest thing, thinking that they were going to find some miracle cure. And fortunately, the consumer's a little bit more savvy now and are starting to realize that it's not the case. Now, that doesn't mean that the equipment isn't good or that doesn't work, but it's not going to do what it says it does if you don't know how to use it properly. And I think this is where the instructors, the instruction side of it is very important. I want to just go back very quickly here, just something that you had mentioned about, Alex, about you know, ways of sort of opening up the market. You know, something else that I've really noticed a lot, and I think that the industry is going to have to be a little bit more aggressive on, and I can only go from what I've experienced, you know, traveling around. One of the things that I've noticed about a lot of the golf clubs and facilities is they certainly do their fair share of marketing and promoting their facilities, but they're not really aggressively going out into the community. They're more of, you know, we're here, you know, come and play golf or come and use our practice facility and, you know, you're welcome, but they're not really doing anything to engage with the community. And I think one of the things that I could see some of the courses doing is maybe having like almost like a camp day where they could approach some of the schools in the area and get some of the youngsters come out, invite them out for, you know, a few hours and, you know, maybe even get rotate it throughout a region and have different facilities at different times and get some of the local instructors together, working together and introducing it to some of these youngsters. What do you guys think about something like that?
Right. I think it's a great idea, because it really only just takes a spark to get somebody really fired up about the game. And it could be as simple as just that one time that they were exposed where maybe nobody in their family had ever played, or maybe they don't have older brothers who are going to take them out to the golf course. So I'm all in favor of kids getting that first taste. And I like to treat golf as it's more than a sport. I don't even really think you can compare it to sports like tennis and soccer, where there's really not a whole lot of money in those industries in terms of people spending money on the lessons and the equipment and the memberships compared to golf.
Right.
I think, you've got to find ways to bring that golf culture to them if it's not coming naturally as it maybe in the past we relied on father to son, and the dad's at the club and the whole family comes in, and then golf is just part of your life growing up. But it's more expansive.
Well, here's the thing, and I guess this is why I raise this issue. There is so much competition, even in this area alone. There's at least, I could probably whip a rock outside of my condo here and probably hit 3 golf courses. And, I can probably give you a general idea of each of the courses based on what I've read in their advertisements and stuff. But, they're not actually, now they certainly hold events, and I'm not trying to say this as a criticism. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find ways that the golf industry can be a little bit more aggressive in trying to get more people, because I think the days are gone, really. Certainly you're going to still have your father-son and father-daughter and mother-daughter, whatever, sort of introducing the game if they're already involved to their children, and that's fantastic. A lot of husbands out there might get might encourage their wives to join them at some point as well, especially as they get closer to retirement age and want to travel. If he plays golf, that's a great way to keep the that end of it going. But the problem is that a lot of the facilities are again, they're advertising and they're promoting the facility, but they're not really doing anything to encourage groups of people or other than maybe a corporate event or something like that. And I think that's really what the industry needs to do. And I've talked to a few people in the area here about that, and they just don't know what to do. And I think that if the industry, if the powers that be, let's put it that way, maybe come up with a solution and said, okay, look, this is the way that the industry can grow. The facilities need to sort of jump on board. And I think if we can come up with a game plan, I think you'll start to see that happen. Because people are not just going to walk in anymore. I go around to a lot of different golf courses from, here to Mississippi and up to, Atlanta and so forth. And they're not as busy as they could be. And I think part of the reason is they're not really, the area is not really being marketed to, in my opinion, effectively. Any comments or any thoughts, guys?
Well, it's a tough situation because people, and this goes back to what I've mentioned very early on this call, is that people are so used to being marketed to now, where they really only do things unless they really love it. They really only do things or buy things that are marketed to them. And
right
with the financial situation of a lot of these facilities, you got to make a lot of choices, right? Where do we spend our dollars and cents, right? Do we water the course? Do we right? So
yeah,
sure. I think using the internet, which is in a lot of cases free, right, and focusing on a web presence and doing as much social media promoting and advertising and connecting with other businesses in your area or even other golf courses or just individual golfers or people, that's what every facility and teaching professional, for that matter, should be doing, because it's a great start, and you never know where things lead. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a roundtable discussion where the heads of the industry are going to go, you know what, we got it. Let's just roll this out. I don't think it's a cookie cutter thing. I think each and every individual facility or facilities in different regions and catering to different demographics, they're going to have to try some different things, right? Because if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, right, we all know the definition of insanity, right? If you don't do anything different, you can't expect a different outcome, right? So I think it's just a matter of starting to think outside the box, which is why I totally understand with some of these 15-inch holes and soccer golf and frisbee golf. It's at least you're doing something, right? You're not sitting there saying, well, hopefully the game of golf, hopefully Rory turns into the next Tiger or whatever, because that's not going to happen. You can't rely on a global icon to come about to help.
No, and it could be another 10 or 20 years before somebody like that comes along. And you were right in what you said. Tiger has done a lot. It's not just the fact that he brought some excitement to the game, but he also brought an element to the game that was not there for as long as, I go back 50 years. So, in my age bracket, so, I know what was there before. And physical fitness was not something that was talked about in golf back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Well, along comes Tiger Woods, this, sort of scraggly-looking kid in the beginning, but then suddenly a few years down the road, he's this buff-looking guy, and he attracted a whole new segment of the population. And I thought, hey, you know what? He's athletic, and he brought a whole different demographics. And I want to jump into that now, guys, if we can. as we talk about some of the what golfers are looking for, let's talk about some of the demographics of golf. Let's talk about, for instance, and obviously I know a lot of it's dependent on age and so forth, but women, for instance, there's a lot of women professionals, and I'm talking about business professionals out there that are interested in taking up golf. They've started to recognize that it's a business tool that men have used for years and years and still use. They want to sort of be part of that puzzle, if you will. So how do we, as an industry, sort of make them feel more welcome? I know there's some things going on there right now, and the LPGA is doing a lot of great work behind the scenes and outwards, but what can we do as an industry in general, do you think, to help open that door even further? Either one, guys.
I would suggest, putting a little bit more, focus on the great female teachers that we have, where I think if you're a young girl and you're looking for a role model, if you've got an LPGA or a PGA female teacher who's getting a lot of publicity, getting a lot of attention, I don't think that's going to hurt anything.
No. Well, one of the things, too, that's happened recently, I had on the other program, I had Karen Palacios Jansen was on the show, which I'm sure you both know who she is, but she was on the Women of Golf show a few weeks back, and she talked about a new program that the LPGA is coming out. And I think this is important really to mention again, but they're coming out with a new format, if you will. It's a new training program where they're actually going to be certifying instructors to teach specifically to the female golfers, because as we all know, women and men learn differently. And the golf industry is starting to realize that. And a lot of people, might scratch their head and say, well, wait a minute, they hit the ball, we hit the ball. What I don't understand. Men's brains work differently than the female brain and vice versa. And what might be good to teach to you or I might not work the same way, the techniques. So the LPGA has done some very extensive studies, and Karen has come on board with them as well to implement that. So that's one way that the industry can help. But I think what the other thing is as well is, and it might seem like a simple approach, but I really think that a lot of the courses out there need to get more involved with women in the pro shops, not just working there, but more involved in setting up the pro shops to attract women to want to come in. Because if you still go into a lot of, and not all the courses, but you go into some of the courses, it's kind of the same look and same sort of stuff. It's not very inviting to the female golfer. So I think maybe if there's some female buyers perhaps working there that are going to stock it and make it a little bit more female friendly, you're going to get more women wanting to come out and check it out. Would you agree with that?
I think that's a great point, Ted. But I think that's just because of the number of female golfers that are walking into pro shops versus the number of male golfers, right? Obviously, it's heavily weighed towards the male side. So from a business standpoint, I understand why they're doing that, why it's mostly stocked full of gear or equipment that's for the male golfer. But that begs the question, okay, what do we do to get more women involved in the game of golf? And there's a story that I'll tell, and I promise I won't make it too long, but it was about a year and a half ago, and I had a group of women contact me, or the head of a professional networking group that was all females in the real estate industry, and I knew her from my previous career, and she called and said, we want to get our group of 30 women together and get to a driving range and introduce them to some of the basics of golf, because all of them want to get to the point where they can play in their company outings and get through 18 holes and maybe get a little business out of it or whatever it is. We called 2 driving ranges, she walked into 2 driving ranges, talked to 2 separate professionals, and they both said no. They both said no. They didn't have a lot of money to spend. And she asked me, she goes, would you do it? We have this driving range down the street. I know you know enough to give some basics. And I said, sure. And I went over there. They had wine. They had cocktails. I was showing them just some basics on the grip and the takeaway. And an hour later, these women were having a fantastic time. They were getting the ball in the air, which half of them had never done before. And, gosh, 6 or 7 of them asked me if they could take a lesson from me. And not being a teaching professional, I sent them on to a teaching professional in the area that I knew. But the point of the story is there has to be a level of comfort there. And it has to be more inviting, and I think golf for a long time, and it's continually getting better, obviously, just the way things are continuing to progress with the LPGA Tour and Michelle Wie and her finally coming into her own. It's creating a lot of buzz, and I know that the LPGA and the PGA Tour are now working together and on some different initiatives, but we need to focus on comfort and not having this standoffish stigma where, you really don't belong in this game, right? Yeah. We need to really get rid of that as much as possible. And when people are coming into the pro shop and women are coming into the pro shop asking for help, it's crazy to me that anyone wouldn't jump at that opportunity.
Well, here's the thing that sort of baffles and kind of boggles my mind a little bit about the golf industry in general. And I understand you're exactly right. I mean, the majority of people golfing are still, if you were to put it on a scale, it's still going to tilt quite heavily onto the male side. And I understand that. But when you factor in on a global scale that it's now better than 50% of the global population is female.
Right.
Now, obviously, there's some markets that have not been tapped in yet, but even here in the United States, there's an extremely high percentage of females, and because females are getting more and more into the professional business world and so forth, they're becoming more interested in playing and being a part of golf, and that's why you're seeing a lot of these networks and so forth. So the industry has to change, and I think what's happening is it's been a very slow change. And here's the problem. Women have a very long-term memory, and if they don't feel that they're being received very well, they will turn off and go somewhere else, and they won't forget that easily. And the problem is that just what your example that you gave, if you've got a group of women coming that want to take up and learn the game and want to participate, whether it's 5, 10, 20 or 100, the courses need to start recognizing, especially in this economic climate. There's a lot of courses out there that are either gone or are hurting right now, so they're not in a position really to be too picky. And I think that it's going to be good. I think it's going to be good for the game for a multitude of reasons. First off, I think as women, and I think anybody that understands, even a small minutia of women understands that women have considerably more purchasing power than men do. And I'm not saying that facetiously. I'm saying that as a fact.
Sure,
I mean, if you look at the stats and compare, the male closet to the female closet, it's about 10 times, if not more. And I think that the golf industry is missing an opportunity by not being more aggressive going after that thing and after the female market. And I think that we've got to come up with a lot more creative ways of bringing that market open. And I think once they do, some of the void that's happened in the last decade, particularly the last 5 or 6 years with the slumping economy, will start to fill up very nicely. And a lot of these courses that are maybe hurting right now are going to see it. And also the junior market as well. Nick, let's talk a little bit about I want to get you in on this as well, Nick, about the junior golf. A lot of great programs around there. What do you see that's good happening in the junior programs, and what are some things that you'd like to see happening in the junior programs?
Oh, man. I wouldn't consider myself an expert in that area, although I do have 2 daughters that are really into golf. I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old girl, and as much as kids at that age can be into it, they are, and they don't know that it's kind of a traditional male sport. They like to watch it on TV. My oldest went to a golf camp over the summer. But I can't really speak to how well the programs are doing. I hear numbers from the PGA that I really like what they did with the drive, chip, and putt competition that they had and having the finals at Augusta National. I think that was a really cool thing for them to do, and any of the kids who were involved in that are going to remember that forever. And I've heard some numbers of 20 or 50,000 kids maybe being involved in programs, but it's kind of a drop in the bucket if you're thinking about trying to develop the next generation of millions of golf-addicted Americans.
Yep.
So, whatever they're doing, I think they should continue, but I would like to see more done to make it a sport that every kid has had some exposure to, even whether it could be something in public schools where we get. I like snag golf for just giving a kid a way to experience what it's like to hit a ball in the air, whether it's it's an easier piece of equipment to use. And I like the First Tee program. I understand initially it was very much about golf, and then it kind of transitioned to being a little more focused on the life lessons. I'd love to see just more programs that are for people who would ordinarily not get a chance to play at all, get a lot of exposure to the game itself, because I think just playing golf teaches you a lot of lessons just through the game itself. Whether you're getting extra, moral stuff after that is a different story.
Well, Nick, to piggyback. Sorry,
go ahead, Alex.
I was just going to add to some of Nick's comments. It's a little bit different again from the other sports. I know the PGA is doing a great job with their junior leagues, which I believe started last year, and I've seen some of them in our areas out on the golf courses, and it's something that's not going to happen overnight, right? They're starting to get into PE or gym classes in different schools around the country, and slowly but surely they're starting to get kids involved at a younger age. But we have to remember that in terms of golf teams, as opposed to football teams and basketball teams and baseball teams, there's not 30 players, right? There's not 20 players or 50. There's usually 5 or 6, and there might be a JV. So unfortunately, there's just some things that are out of our control, if that makes sense. If 40 kids are going to try out for a golf team, and 5 of them make it, or 7 of them make it, but only 5 are actually going to play, now you probably just lost 30 kids. And they don't feel like they're good enough now to play. So it's, what can we do? We just have 30 kids in every school around the country get told, no, you're not good enough to play on our golf team. Go try something else. Thanks. And that adds up, right? That adds up to a lot of people, a lot of golfers, a lot of future golfers, a lot of revenue for facilities all over the country, and equipment manufacturers and teaching professionals. And so I think there needs to be a focus on that, certainly. What do we do with those kids? And I think the answer is creating, there's a lot of great junior tours throughout the country. There's obviously ones that are really focused on the elite junior. There are others that focus on not just the elite, but they have different flights. I know a buddy of mine and a board member, Chris Smeal, down in San Diego. He started Future Champions Golf, and they are growing very quickly, and they cater to any kid that is looking to play some competitive golf and get the juices flowing and feel that thrill. And I think more of that is what we need to get the youth involved in the game more often.
let me just throw something in here, and I was thinking as you were talking there, Alex, something that we talked about on the phone the other day, and you'll understand where I'm going with this in a moment. But you know, you and I talked about hockey as an example, both big hockey fans, and hockey has something very unique, like some of the other sports like football and that. But and I was thinking to myself, you know, this might be an opportunity really for golf. Obviously, not everybody's going to make it onto the high school team or the college golf team if they have one. But communities could start something almost similar to as hockey did, like house leagues, where in a community organized type thing where you know, each city could have multiple teams that they would compete against one another, and the winner of that city would play, you know, another adjoining, or, you know, and then you could take it into a state level and so forth. So you could have multiple teams within communities, whether it be 5 or 7 players, whatever the case may be. But you could almost treat it as hockey does with a house league. So it's a way of like an entry level into golf. And sure, everybody's not going to be able to make it onto the high school or college teams, but they could still be engaged in sports and still be having some fun and be introduced to it at an early age. What about something like that?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I can guarantee you, I know that on our roadmap there are things on the whiteboards at the office that focus on certain things like that, and to create awareness for those different types of programs on the internet and social platforms. And I can guarantee you that there are companies out there right now that are blueprinting ways to bring that to fruition, I guess I'd say. It's not going to be long before some of those things come about, and that's why we're excited about where things are going. I know there's a lot of people out there that are bringing about different initiatives to help get communities more involved, women more involved. The LPGA is doing a fantastic job. I know they have a lot in the pipeline. So it's an exciting time, and change is happening, and I think it was a few years ago that the industry as a whole recognized that we need to start changing a little bit. And it's just, you know, unfortunately, it's easy for people to sit back and say, well, where's the change? Well, it doesn't happen overnight, right? It's going to take time.
Right,
but
exactly.
I think the building blocks are now in place, and it's just a matter of continually working hard towards those goals, and I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a great thing for the game of golf long term and short term.
Right, and I think, you know, to talk about some of the ways really to grow the game, I think number one and first and foremost, I think it has to be fun. People have to have fun playing golf, and you know, one of the things that has been a little bit of a deterrent is it is a difficult game compared to others, as Nick had mentioned earlier about kicking around a soccer ball or you know, on the tennis court. Not that tennis is I don't want to say it's necessarily an easy sport, but it's certainly easier to you know, to volley a tennis ball over the net than it is to, you know, to smash a 250-yard drive down the center of the fairway. So there's a lot of hurdles that people have to overcome in learning to play golf. So I think if we make it more fun, and certainly with some creative and interesting instruction, certainly golfers are going to become better and are going to have that fun and enjoy it more and want to participate more. But also some of the other things we touched a little bit about that. Also, we need to have less barriers for entry. And I think when we add all these things together, it certainly is going to make it, you know, certainly more golf. But some of the barriers, obviously the cost to come down. There needs to be more entry-level clubs and facilities, number one, but also the equipment needs to be more entry-level. There's some stuff out there, but it's really not as cheap as what it could be. There's a lot of great programs, I think, that could come out. But so those are some ways that I think that we could help grow the game a little bit more is to make it, number one, fun, and to be creative with some of the instruction and make it a little bit more simplistic, so that because not everybody wants to be the next Tiger Woods or the next Jack Nicklaus or the next Rory McIlroy. Right. They just want to go out and have a good time. And I think if we sometimes I think we can make instruction a little bit too complicating. And that brings us to another point I want to raise, guys, is
there's obviously been a lot of equipment that's come in, and I'm not talking about the drivers and so forth. I'm talking about the electronic equipment such as TrackMan and Flight Scope. Let's talk a little bit about that. Is it what it's cracked up to be? Is it really helping the game, or is it just throwing a lot of numbers out there that's confusing the average golfer? What do you think?
Well, as you probably know, Ted, I run a couple of groups for golf teachers on Facebook, and a lot of it gets pretty technical. The first group I ever started was called Golf Biomechanist, and it's really it was focused on 3D and looking at body movements and trying to really do some real diagnostics. Now, TrackMan and Flight Scopes, it's a different kind of 3D. It's all based on ball flight. It's not looking at the body. But my opinion on that is that it can actually make the pro's job easier and can make the process of teaching simpler rather than a lot of guessing, trying to look at video and stills and trying to do everything based on what they see and just looking at what the naked eye could tell them. An educated pro with the right tool is going to be a better teacher. Now, there are cases of pros getting these tools and probably telling the student way too much, way too soon, and then the student becomes obsessed over the numbers, and you hear Brandel Chambly talking about whether Tiger is obsessed with zeroing out his path on TrackMan. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I know it is. There is always potential there for it to become too much about the numbers, but for the most part, I really see I know a lot of people who own these tools, and they're all telling me the same story, which is that once they really learned how to communicate with the students as far as what the numbers mean, it enabled them to give a simpler message, and a lot of times the TrackMan will validate what they've been trying to tell the student for a long time, and now the student can actually see a number change or not change. So as an example, if I'm coming across the ball, really coming over the top, and my path is way left, or my general swing direction is way left, and I feel like I'm trying to make a huge change, and we go look at the numbers and they're hardly changing at all, well, that helps the teacher really, it really kind of verifies what they're telling the student. So I'm definitely in favor of technology.
Don't get me wrong. Let me just add one thing real quick here. Don't get me wrong, Nick, and just for those of you tuning into the program, what Nick was referring to is of course, on Facebook. He has a lot of groups that he's headed up in the last few years, and I certainly follow them very diligently, and I certainly pull some ideas out of there. And I'll have to admit, Nick, I've seen some pretty heated discussions in those groups over equipment and over the technology. So it certainly makes for some interesting. Some I agree with, and some I don't, of course. But I've seen some good discussions in there, and I agree with you. I think it's really what the instructor needs to understand, and I think they're slowly starting to now, some more than others, is it's really just another tool. It's another way for them to be able to assess an individual's abilities and be able to take those numbers. I think what sort of hurt the industry, and this is probably what Brandel was trying to get at, is that there were some maybe that rely so much on the numbers and confused the average golfer with these numbers when maybe it wasn't necessary. And I think also, too, that some of the teachers were relying too heavily on that when maybe sometimes other avenues might have been just as good. So I think it's a balance. I think the instructors certainly, as the industry changes, I think that by all means, I think there is definitely a need for this technology. But I think we have to also understand that the teacher needs to know when it's appropriate to sort of introduce certain things and when to sort of pull the reins back a little bit. Would you agree with that, you think, Nick?
Yeah, and there's also this misconception that the teachers that are using, let's just call it TrackMan, so I don't have to go back and call everything TrackMan and FlightScope, but just assume that I mean both of them. If someone is teaching using it, it doesn't mean that they're sharing all of this information with the students. And so when Brandel Chambly is commenting on it, I think he's really talking about what he's seeing on the tour, not really talking about the regular golfer. And I believe what he's really confusing it with was this period of time, probably over the last 10 years, where there was so much obsession with positions and video that a lot of these guys on tour started looking like robots, and they maybe lost some of their natural athletic ability. I think using 3D launch monitor could allow a teacher to rely less on video, which I think would bring more feel back into the game and have it be more of a question of, hey, if I do what feels natural, am I producing good numbers with that? And then I no longer have to obsess over exactly like where does my right elbow point at the top of the swing, or I think Brandel is I think he's off base with going after TrackMan when it comes to Tiger Woods and some of these other players. But I could see how if I took a lesson from somebody and I had no familiarity with the tool, and all of a sudden they're telling me, oh, your angle of attack is -6, and we really need to immediately get that to another number, and you're thinking, well, I don't even know what that means. And he's looking at the computer instead of talking to me. What people want in a golf lesson is attention. If they feel like the attention is on a computer, then obviously the student is not going to really enjoy that experience as much. So teachers know how to they need to learn how to use the tools, but for the most part, I think they do.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's as time goes on. Sorry, Alex, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. You're fine.
To get that
you're
in
fine.
Really what I'm saying is that I agree, Nick, with what you're saying. I think that there is a definite need for this technology, and I'm certainly all for it. I just think it's a balancing act. I think that, as you just pointed out, I think that the student, when they are taking lessons, want to feel there has to be a connection between the teacher and the student. There has to be a rapport. It's just like going to your doctor, let's say. There needs to be a comfort level established, and if the instructor is staring down at a screen or a monitor all the time and not really engaging with you, it's not a very comforting feeling, and you're less likely to be received well. And my other concern is that maybe some instructors, and again, I could be way off base here, may rely sometimes too much on technology to produce their lessons. And what happens when the power or the batteries die or what have you? Do they close up shop for the day until the power comes back on, or are they able to continue on and effectively teach? And that's what I'm saying by a fine sort of a walking line. I think the technology needs to be there. It's a valuable tool. It's like a business tool. And I think that, with proper techniques and proper teaching to the instructors and how to find that balancing act, I think is going to make it a much more exciting industry. And between you and I and the rug, I really don't really pay attention to much what Brandel Chambly says anymore, because to be quite honest, he never really made a lot of sense to begin with. I wish he would go out and play on the Champions Tour or something. But anyway, that's much my personal opinion. But since we raised it up, and I'm only kidding. I have nothing against Brandel, but I think sometimes he speaks before he thinks. But anyways, let's talk about Tiger Woods a little bit, guys. What's been happening and just some general thoughts. Alex, let's go with you first, and Nick, jump in.
Yeah, I mean, what's there really to say? He's maybe the greatest golfer of all time. If you look at number of majors, okay, not quite Jack, but he's certainly the most popular golfer of all time, and he transformed the game into what it is today. Right? People wouldn't be making $1 million if they finished first place in the tournament if it wasn't for him. Right? Golf wouldn't be an $86 billion industry or whatever it was last week if it wasn't for him. Right? So I think what you're seeing is, everyone seemed to be so reliant on Tiger Woods that he's not winning every other major now. It's, oh my gosh, what's wrong? And they have hours upon hours upon hours on the Golf Channel about what is he doing wrong? And the reality of it is, the he's getting older, right?
Yeah.
And everyone knows his workout regimen for the last decade is Navy SEAL like, right? And he goes really hard at things. His love for the game is second to none, probably, and so he pushes himself to get back out on the golf course, probably too soon every time he gets injured, and it's just the way it is, right? I think whether or not he's going to break Jack's record or not. I mean, I don't think anyone would really. It's tough to argue that he's not the greatest golfer of all time, and he hasn't had the most profound effect on the game. Obviously, Arnold Palmer was another one of those huge effect on a lot of different aspects of the industry. But it's as a fan, a big fan of his, and growing up in his prime and seeing what he did for the game, it's tough to see him struggle. It's tough to see him missing cuts when you almost never see it, especially at majors. And so I certainly think that the game is better with him, and hopefully he can completely heal. But with major swing changes, and do I think he's going to be the same Tiger of old? No, because he's older. He's going to be a different Tiger, and maybe a different Tiger, an older Tiger isn't dominant, but over the course of 10 years, he wins 12 majors. No one's done that. Yeah. No one's come close to that. I think Jack did 8 in a decade, but I think it's just time to go. Okay, everyone relax, give him some slack. It's just the way it is, and let's start focusing on all the other great things that are happening on tour and the LPGA tour, and so that's my personal opinion.
Well, and I think, and I agree. I think what a lot of it is, I think it's the media's struggle to find something else to write about, and there was a gravy train for a number of years with Tiger, and suddenly it came to a screeching halt, and now they've got nothing else in their mind to write about. What do we do now? Tiger's not leading the tour anymore. He's not number one. He's not winning majors every year. So what do we talk about? And instead of focusing on, the other 1,500 players that, go out and grind every week on the different tours, they're still waiting for the white horse to come riding and Tiger to be on top with mounting a charge in the next major. And, my opinion on Tiger Woods is this, and again, I might be wrong. When Tiger went through, his personal issues a few years back, I think one of the things that and this would be with anybody. I mean, obviously Tiger's used to being on the stage, if you will, and is used to having millions of people around the world watch him, swing a club and adjust his cap and whatnot. But what he went through, whether you agree or not, or support or not, is a major hurdle. And I think one of the things, if I was to say a criticism, I think he should have stayed away from the game a little longer than he did. I think he came back too quick. And I think mentally he was not ready to come back. He might have thought he was, and physically he might have, nothing really changed physically. But that was a big ordeal. And I think what he needed to do was to take a little bit more time, do a little more soul searching, whatever, and just stay away from the game for a little bit before he came back. I think he tried to come back too soon. It was his way of coping with it. And I think that when he didn't see a sort of continuation of his success, I think it mentally has chiseled away at him a little bit. And even some people might argue and say, well, yeah, he won 5 tournaments, last year or the year before, what have you. I think his pursuit of majors, there's been, and I said this to you, Alex, the other day on the phone, I think a little of the fire has gone away, and part of it, I'm sure, is his age, as some of it, but I think also, too, I think him getting back in the game as quickly as he did after all that went on, and under continual scrutiny, if he doesn't, win the majors, I think has gotten to him, and it's affected him a lot more than what people realize. Agree, disagree, or any thoughts, guys? Nick, if you want to go ahead.
Well, certainly with the mental component, his whole mindset had to have changed from prior to the whole scandal, when he knew that everybody in the gallery was pulling for him. He probably was actually feeding off that lifestyle he was living, which is basically the lifestyle of the professional athlete. I mean, they're not exactly the most faithful group of guys. If you look at other sports, NFL, NBA, these guys, they have all kinds of extramarital activities, and a lot of psychologists say that kind of feeds into their whole perception of themselves. And so you have this huge embarrassment. Whether it directly impacts how he plays or not, at least it's going to impact his outlook on the entire game and the process of being around the galleries, and whether you go from everybody loves you to all of a sudden you're hearing all these comments from people when he first came back, the jokes, that I'm sure rattled him to some degree. But mainly I agree with Alex is that he's my age. I think he was born like a week after me or something. So I'm going to turn 39 here pretty soon. I know that my body is much more broken down. It takes so much longer to recover from any little thing. And I was just watching a video of Michael Jordan when he first came into the league in the first slam dunk contest, and you look at his body was compared to when he made his comeback, when he was probably younger than Tiger is now. When he came back, he was probably 35. And, I mean, Tiger's golf swing in 2000, he's just so elastic as a 23, 24-year-old. And now, over time, he got bigger. A lot of that was the way he works out, but I think most of us between 22 and 38, our build tends to change, and some of the things that he used to be able to do with that golf swing back then require the type of body, even if he had no surgery, which he's probably had 5 surgeries, maybe at least 3 on the left knee. I think he had a broken femur, is that right, on his left leg, had the back surgery. I think he even had something going on with his right knee at one point. But, if you add all those things together and you realize that it's really silly for the media to have this expectation that he will just start swinging the way he did in 2000, as though you can just press a button and just go back to that point in time. So that's kind of my response when people say either what's wrong with Tiger's swing, or why doesn't he just go back to Butch and go back to that move that he had 14 years ago?
And by the way, Nick, wait till you get to 50. It's a lot harder than 39. But I know what you mean. You raise some valid points, and that's so. And I do too. I remember, and the reason why I said about getting, maybe coming back a little too soon is it was really for the mental side of it. Is you knew that he knew at some point he was going to get barraged, and I anticipated, and maybe in his mind he thought, he wanted to get back into the game, and he figured, let me take my lumps now, the sooner the better, and get back to business at hand. But I just, in the back of my mind, I wonder sometimes if maybe had he waited, another 6 months. And just giving himself a little bit more time to prepare and just not get right back into it, whether that might have made a difference or not. Obviously, the physical part of it, you're right on the money, Nick. I mean, as he gets older and that, his swing is going to change. And I, to the point of nausea, I've heard so many people in the industry, I think, say over these last several years, go back to Butch and should have been done this, and he shouldn't have changed that, and why does he keep doing this? Well, with the exception of Nicklaus, and maybe Palmer, most of the golfers of today are constantly revamping and changing their swing. It's part of that sort of mentality with with an athlete, they're constantly trying to tweak and improve and so forth. So that's always going to happen. Nick Faldo is a good example. He changed himself around, from his earlier days and went on to have a very successful career, and then continued to tweak and manifest his golf swing until present time. So, that's going to happen with some players, and Tiger's probably going to change and go somewhere else again down the road at some point. But that's just what somebody at his caliber is going to do. But I don't think you're ever going to see, as Alex pointed out, I don't think you're going to see Tiger get back to the 2000 Tiger. I think he's got some more majors in him. Whether he beats Jack's record or not, who knows? Now they're all jumping on the bandwagon because Rory won, the PGA. Now he's in pursuit of Jack's record, and I think the media is just feeding itself because it's got nothing better to do than to try and jump on that bandwagon. But I don't know how many times I've heard them say every time somebody wins something, is this the next Jack Nicklaus, or is this the next so-and-so? I think Tiger is going to do what Tiger's going to do, and I wouldn't be surprised at some point he just says, I've had enough, I'm going to go and pursue some other things, which he's talked about in the past.
Yeah, I think I remember a quote from him saying, if you ever see me on the Champions Tour, just put a bullet in me, something to that effect. I don't think you're going to see him in 10 years competing.
Right.
No, I don't think so. I think he's got too many other things that, in his mind and what that may be that he wants to do. And from a selfish standpoint, would I love to see him get back on top again and really make a charge at Nicklaus's record? Sure. I mean, why the hell not? But whether that happens or not, I'm not going to lose sleep and go out and jump off to the Golden Gate Bridge if he doesn't. I just think that the media, there's too many other things in golf that they could be focusing on that would help perpetuate and move the game forward. And that doesn't mean they can't report on Tiger, but enough's enough. There's other players out there. There's other people that deserve, and I have to agree a little bit with Sergio, even though sometimes he gets under my skin. There is more to the PGA Tour than just Tiger Woods.
Well, I agree with you there, Ted, but the last 15 or 10 minutes of this conversation prove what it is about Tiger Woods that makes him so special. Even when you want to talk about other stuff, it's so easy and fun and interesting to talk about Tiger, regardless of where he's at in his career. So, yeah, there is other stuff, but people just there's this addictiveness to what's Tiger doing? Has ESPN ever covered any other golfer besides Tiger? During the World Cup, there's the Tiger status. It's insane. And so, in today's age with social media and television ratings, they're just going to go with what's popular. They're not doing it in hopes that people are going to want to hear it. They're doing it because that's what the studies show, regardless of where he's at.
The only player that I think that I can recall, and this is going back, that really even came close to his, sort of excitement, if you will, was really Arnold Palmer. And that's because he was at a point in golf's, sort of a turning point for golf. I mean, he was instrumental in bringing television and bringing that audience, that golf audience. He was really a pioneer, if you will. So that's why Arnold has always sort of had, and Jack certainly has had his fair share of media attention, but it was for different reasons. Jack certainly never did stir a lot of excitement, the same way as Tiger did. Not that, I love Jack to death, but if you compare the two, certainly Tiger is a much more exciting player than Jack was. But Arnold was kind of along that way too. He was a pioneer, and Tiger was a pioneer when he came along. He changed the face of golf really forever. And there may be never, or there may be somebody, as I said earlier, 10 or 20 years down the road that may come again. It might be a female this time. It might be a woman that will come out and do something that will drastically change the face of golf. I'm not going to hold my breath, but that may happen. Let's talk about something other than Tiger, let's talk about some of the other young guys on tour. Who do you like? And Nick, I'll start with you since you were talking a few minutes ago about Tiger. Who are some of the young guys on tour that you like and hope to see make a charge at golf's majors or golf's tournaments in general?
Well, it's hard not to like Ricky Fowler. I mean, I think he's just a really good kid. Like his attitude, everybody who talks about him says how, if you don't know anything, you just look at his clothes and you looked at the hair, you would think, oh, this kid must be a punk. He's a dirt bike rider, and what's with the mustache? But he's got just a lot of character, ton of game. I mean, I think he finished top 5 in all 4 majors this year. At least he was in position to do that. I don't know if he actually finished top 5 in the PGA. I think he bogeyed 18, but I love watching him. Of course, Rory McIlroy. I mean, he was the next coming of Tiger Woods, and he's basically living up to all that hype from a couple of years ago. I don't think he'll ever have the appeal that Tiger had, like, to the media and for a huge audience, but he's still probably our biggest superstar on tour right now. And I mean, his swing is amazing to watch. He's got freakish athletic ability. He's got a lot of character in terms of at least he's very well liked. I don't think that his fiance is too happy with his ex-fiance is too happy with how he handled that. But overall, as a golfer, he's pretty happy to have Rory doing well. Those 2 young guys are probably the biggest stars in the game right now.
Right. Alex, what about you? Any shining rising stars that you see on tour?
I thought for a second there that we were going to have a long period of golf where a bunch of young guns were going at each other. You got Jordan Spieth. Let's not forget about him and what he's been able to do since the John Deere. Webb Simpson, not the year he's wanted, but obviously still a great player. Dustin Johnson, hopefully he figures out what he needs to figure out and gets back into the game. But I thought we were going to kind of have this even playing field for a while, and then on Sunday, I know that Rory had the 3 majors, and 2 of them he kind of could have walked in and played with a 7-iron King Cup style all the way to win them. But what I saw on Sunday was very Tiger-like, and that was he beat the best players in the world, Phil Mickelson and Ricky Fowler. I mean those guys were gunning for him. He didn't even have the lead in the middle of the round, and he won without playing his best golf. Yeah. And so you kind of, that's what Tiger used to do, right? Tiger would find a way to win even if he wasn't playing his best. So with that kind of in mind, I got to think that if Rory's winning majors without playing his A game, that's tough to ignore. And whether it's what Nick said, he's not going to have the kind of the excitement about him and the media coverage that Tiger could get and that everyone loved about Tiger. So I'm not sure that that's necessarily a great thing for the popularity of the tour if he becomes the next Tiger. I think it would be better if there was 2 or 3 guys at the top, the way we were all hoping for Sergio and Tiger to go at it. And I really wanted to see Ricky win that tournament. And the difference in those 2 golfers is quite a bit. Ricky's there and he's fist pumping Phil, and I know they're buddies, but he seemed like he loves being out there, and he's excited to be out there. And if he wins, he wins. Great, and he's working hard to try to win. And then Rory kind of reminds me of what Tiger looked like when he was trying to win tournaments, and that is he doesn't want to talk to anybody. He's focused. He's got that look in his eye that he just wants to kill. And And so Rory, I think I think you're going to see him chase Tiger's records and Jack's records certainly. But I would love to see some other guys. I'd love to see Spieth win. We talked about Spieth and the Masters and how everyone was talking about him being the next Tiger Woods. 6 months ago they were talking about it, and he's won the John Deere. But I'd love to see him win some big tournaments, and it's good to see Keimer back in the mix. So there's a lot of young guys. Patrick Reed, probably not a top 5 player as he proclaimed, but he's a great player, and I would like to see a mix of 20 guys going after each other week after week, and that's the cool thing about this year. You've kind of seen that. You've seen a lot of first time winners, and I think that's good for the game of golf.
Well, I think what Tiger did and what sort of set him apart really was obviously he was a master when it came to the mental side of golf. I mean, if you look at Tiger's physical golf game compared to some of the other phenomenal ball strikers on tour, it really wasn't any better shot for shot. Now, what Tiger did have an ability to do that nobody else did was he was able to create, especially very early on in the tour, an intimidation. And it was almost like as soon as somebody realized on Thursday when they got their pairing sheets that they were going to be matched with Tiger Woods, it was like, oh shoot, I'm playing with Tiger.
Right.
And I think it's going to be a long time, if at all, before we ever see that type of golf again. And I think what's happening now and why you're seeing so many first-time winners and nobody really dominating the tour as Tiger had done and earlier on, Jack, is the fact that the caliber of golfer today, from the physical standpoint, from ability to hit the shots, they're all pretty much the same. They might have slightly different styles. Some might be slightly better, but they're all physically, as Nick had pointed out earlier, the mechanics are so sound now that, the ball can only go so straight. You can't go any straighter than straight. So that part of the game is really not going to change. Some might be better faders, better drawers of the ball than others, but essentially they're all hitting pretty decent shots. Otherwise, they wouldn't be playing on tour. What's going to set the next Tiger Woods, and I hate to use that term because really I don't want to see another Tiger Woods. Tiger is Tiger, Nick is Nick, Nicholas, is Nicholas, and so on and so forth. I want to see somebody else shine in their own rights and with their own abilities, and not, and I understand for purpose of posterity we're comparing against Tiger now, but I'd like to see a rising star shine in their own merits and not just constantly be compared to somebody else. And I think the only way that's going to happen is somebody that has a strong mental game and a strong command of that side of it and able to intimidate again is going to come out and dominate. Otherwise, I think it's just going to be, this week it'll be so-and-so, next week it'll be, and maybe a couple of weeks you might see this person rise up, and it's going to be a shooting match, if you will, over the next few years. Yeah,
well, and Ted, let's not forget about what's going on the LPGA Tour. Excuse me. It's really fun to see Michelle Wie doing what she's doing, and Stacey Lewis, and the 11-year-old girl playing in the U.S. Open, and I hear stories often about young amateur girls around the country that are just putting up ridiculous numbers. So I'm excited to see some of the things that come out of the LPGA Tour in the next few years, because it seems like they have quite a pipeline, and having a few young stars starting to shine on that tour is fun to see as well, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's really where you're going to see, I think you're more likely to see a rising star, if you will, on the LPGA than you are the PGA Tour, at least in the interim, maybe in the next 5 years or so. Maybe not quite to the same degree as Annika Sorenstam was, But you're seeing that through, as you said, Stacey Lewis and Michelle Wee. You're going to see a battle between one or two top players like that in the next few years, and there may be another one that comes up that takes over. But you're going to see that, I think, there. And I think it's just because in comparison to the men's tour, it's still they're still positioning, if you will, these young ladies that are out there, and I think you're going to see that. But predictions for
watch out for Lydia Ko. She's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. What would you like to see, guys? And Nick, I'll start with you here. What would you like to see if you could sort of wave a magic wand? What would you like to see happen in the next few years in golf that really, I think, would get some juices flowing, really make it exciting for you? What were some things that you would really like to see happen in golf?
Personally, I like to think about a world where you have more golf addicts like me. I don't really look at the number of golfers and the number of rounds as much as I want to look at the number of people who just live and breathe and think about nothing else but when the next time they're going to get to play and who they're competing against, and really living the game. And so I like these social technologies that allow people to kind of engage more with their game. And so whether it's sharing the results of their round using technology, I'm tied into the company called Game Golf that you've probably heard of. Graham McDowell invested in it, and Lee Westwood and Jim Furyk, and it's the tracking device. President Obama was using it the other day. And
I saw that. I saw the post on Facebook.
It's a cool way that you can essentially keep reliving your round of golf after you play it. So I think something where an all-year obsession that people can continue to have, rather than, I don't think the game of golf will benefit that much by bringing in more occasional golfers. I think, unfortunately, with a lot of the growth of the game that related to Tiger Woods, I think a lot of it we may look back at it as phantom growth, because it was people who maybe they got out, maybe they played a little bit, but perhaps their numbers were more representative of people who are entertained by watching golfers on television. That's not the same as like creating a bigger base for the game of people who will play regularly for their entire life. I know that at a certain point, very early on when I played, I became hooked on the game to where I know that I'll play my whole life. There's just no chance that I would ever quit. And so, if I could wave a magic wand, I would get more people to take more of an interest in their own game and less of an interest in watching these guys on TV.
Well, maybe that's something that the pharmaceutical companies can work on and get more people addicted instead of the drugs. That would be something.
You took my answer.
That would be. Yeah, I was going to say Big Pharma can step up to the plate and come up with a magic pill that will just everybody hooked. But no, I agree with what Nick said. Alex, what about yourself? You got the magic wand in your hand. What would you do to?
Nick and I have very similar views, and I think you're seeing the industry go that way. It's important to bring more golfers in, or more people into the game of golf and turn them into golfers. But let's not forget about the 25 million that play regularly right now, and what can we do to help them enjoy the game more and have more fun and share their experiences on the golf course. And I think whether you like it or not, things are really going social, and literally everything is going social. And Nick's the company that Nick's involved with, Game Golf. I mean, what a cool concept, right? Being able to effortlessly keep track of your game and share it with friends. And I think that's the way the game is going, and making it a lot more fun for people of all ages, really, not just the tech savvy ones. I think it's important to bring back. I'd love to see 4-hour rounds again, and 4.5-hour rounds again, as opposed to 6-hour rounds. And I think we need to go back to just helping people get better at the game of golf, enjoy it more. I'd love to see more semi-competitive type leagues out there, like we were referring to at the very onset of this call. I think there's a lot that can be done. I think for such a long time, golf has kind of been in a stagnant state, not necessarily from a growth standpoint, but just what's available, right? There's the country club life, and then there's a couple of driving ranges, and then there's the public golf,
your resorts,
and you choose. And now there's nightclubs with driving ranges attached to it. I'd like to see the game continuing to go the way it's going. I think it's going in a great direction, and let's just not screw it up, right? Let's not try to do too much and say, oh, well, this didn't work last year, so let's squash it and start a new initiative, and that didn't work, so let's start a new one. Let's just continue on the path that we're doing. I think there needs to be a redirect from an emphasis on the equipment and making sure that you look like $1 million and you got this shirt that helps you turn more and the golf ball with the greatest spin. All that stuff's important, but I think there needs to be an emphasis on player development, and that starts from the little kid in gym class in elementary school all the way up to the things that TPI is doing and yoga for golfers and Catherine Roberts, things to get people more nimble and playing the game longer. I think we're on a great path. I think it's just a matter of letting things happen and continuing to work hard.
And great points as well. I think too. I'd just like to add a couple of thoughts. I think too that if golf grew into a more social, like social clubs, if you will, much like you have, your social avenues through Facebook and things like that. I could see the younger generation really, gravitating to, if it was made to be fun and it was easily accessible, making it a social thing, planning some trips, saying, hey, we're going to go here. And now with some great, golf locations virtually anywhere. See, today's generation wants to get out and explore. And golf could be used, if it was approached the right way, as a great social thing, as well as not just a business tool, but a great social tool, if you will, for the younger generation. Make it fun, make it interesting, let them laugh and just have some general fun, and have some great vacations, great trips. Even if it's just an overnighter somewhere, and have some access to some great golf. You get a group of guys together, or get some couples together, what have you. I think as golf moves into more of the social media format, and especially with the globalization of golf now, I think the younger generation will gravitate. But if it keeps giving the illusion that it's a stuffy country club type format, which I know it is moving away from that, that's going to deter some people. And as we talked about earlier, getting more women in golf. What I would love to see more couples. The divorce rate in the United States is well above 50%. I think if couples would spend more time together, and that doesn't mean that the guys can't still go with the guys out and play with their regular foursomes, but I think if some of the ladies got out there and took some good quality instruction to the point that they were comfortable enough, and go on some great trips and great resorts or what have you with their husbands, I think that they would have some fun, and as opposed to just going somewhere and laying out on the beach for 5 hours a day, and that would help spur that sort of golf social, and then they could again gravitate to some other couples that have the same interest, and being able to communicate through social media like Game Golf and some of these others about what you're doing and letting everybody know what you're doing is a great way. There's millions of platforms out there on the internet that are of a social base. So why shouldn't golf be put in the mix as well, right?
Right.
Yeah, and Ted, you touched on couples, and really it comes down to these societal changes that have been pointed to as probably the biggest reason for golf maybe not growing anymore. Is that in the past, if you had a stereotypical family of a husband who worked all week, wife stayed home with the kids, then on Saturday he says, I'm going to hang out at the club all day and play golf, and she would just accept it. Nowadays, your wife's working all week just like you are. You're not going to tell her, hey, I'm gonna go just hang out with the boys. So a good idea that I've been in support of would be
not and live to tell about it.
Yeah, you're not going to survive it. And I have a video.
Are you venting, Nick?
No, I actually have a whole approach called How to Talk to Your Wife About Your Golf Obsession, but I'll cover that on another show. But I think the courses if they offered daycare so that husband and wife can come, bring the kids, go play 9 holes. The kids are being watched by some junior golfers who get to play the course for free in exchange for watching the kids. Then it solves a lot of those problems of time, because it's not really lack of time. If it's one thing if your kids are in sports programs and you got to drive them there and you got to do coaching and all that. But when you have little kids and they're just going to be hanging around in your house, they might as well, be able to come out to the course and maybe do some putting. I mean, the daycare, the golf camp that my 7-year-old went to, they had 4-year-olds out there on the putting green, and so you could structure things. And gyms do this. Gyms know that, hey, if we want people to come on a Saturday morning, we got to offer to watch their kids while they work out. So I think golf courses could start implementing that a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at earlier. Is I think that the golf industry in general, I'm talking about the courses and the onset of social media, and that is certainly starting to change the way people think. And I think that the more that these courses engage with the communities and getting them involved and getting them to come out, and what a great, and this is something I'm working on right now. I don't want to get into too much of it, but with one of the major resorts chains and to implement exactly what I'm talking about. They're wanting to compete in this market, and they've got some great golf facilities. And what I want them to do is to just as you mentioned, Nick, is to make it inviting. Not just, it's great to say, come on out and play golf, and here's some discounts and so on and so forth. But what do they do with the kids? They got little kids. They can't just shuffle them off into a room or let the bigger sister babysit all the time. That's not going to fly on a vacation. So if the facility offered something that the youngsters could either be entertained or involved in, then, mom and dad can go and play that 9 holes, as you said, or might even be able to play 18 if they so choose. So, this is something that a great, maybe a resort chain or something could start to manifest itself, and to get couples to come out and do that, or even families to come out and play. Why not family golf? Where maybe you've got a little bit older siblings that want to get out there and play and maybe compete against mom and dad and vice versa, or bring some school chums along and get out there and do that. So there's a lot of areas that this game can grow with, and I think that we've all expressed some of those ideas tonight, and I think if we just keep talking about it and keep discussing it as we're doing, I think eventually it's going to catch on. And I think that there's a lot of great people, and as you mentioned, Nick, earlier, with some of the groups that you've got on Facebook going there, that's really what we're doing with social media right now, is communicating with one another and trying to find ways that we can help grow this game.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the whole family playing golf, including the 10-year-olds, that's fine and good, as long as they're not in the group right in front of me. I'll play.
Yeah, I got you. But you know what I mean. There's lots of ways to get around that.
Of course. And there are facilities doing it, right? It's just that, just like anything else, you have your early adopters, and once they prove successful, then you're going to get more to catch on, and it's just the sort of the natural flow of things, and so I think it's good. I think you're starting to see the junior leagues. I see ladies golf leagues and women's wine night and things like that. I'm starting to see that pop up here and there, and you never used to see that stuff at all. So
no, and
the fact that
it's
starting, it's good.
Right. It is happening now. You're exactly right, Alex. And I think it's only going to continue to grow as more and more women, as you guys pointed out, get out into the business world, and as the wives are no longer always at home, and that's certainly a choice. I'm not criticizing those that decide to stay home, but as more and more women get out into the workforce, they want to be involved in some of these different things, and golf has a great opportunity to really expand that market. And as the LPGA continues to grow and shine and has these rising young stars coming up, it's attracting some of these other young girls to say, hey, I like golf, and maybe I can pursue that as well. And even if they don't make it at a professional level, once they've kind of gotten bitten by the golf bug, hopefully that's going to stick with them for the rest of their lives. And as they grow older and get married and have families, that's another person just besides the husband that's maybe going to bring golf into the family. So, Nick, your dream of golf addicts, I think, is well on its way. I think it's just it's going to take a little nursing in that. Guys, I want to thank you for joining me on Golf Talk Live tonight. I've had a lot of fun tonight and enjoyed the conversation, and I want to wish both of you much continued success with GolfMDs, and I know it's going to be another great way of bringing some good instruction together and letting the good folks out there find a talented individual to work with. And I hope that you guys will come back on, and we'll have some more discussion.
Well, thank you, Ted.
Thanks for having us.
We really appreciate it. Yeah, we'd love to come back at any time.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. And Nick and Alex, you both have an open invitation anytime that you want to come back on and talk some golf, and we'll get a little more into some more meat, if you will, on another show. Maybe what we'll do is we'll have a few others come on the program. We'll have a really good panel discussion going and talk about some of the things that really need to change, and some of the things that maybe have changed that we need to nurture a little bit more and help it grow. But lots of good stuff. I always love talking golf, and of course love watching golf, and enjoy playing golf when I can. I don't get to play as much as I used to between instruction and doing this and other things, but but that goes part of being in the industry. Sometimes you have to.
As soon as you get in it, you never play, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true. When you get into the instruction side of things, suddenly your golf game seems to evaporate somewhere. But a lot of great courses too out in California.
Fantastic!
Make a trip out.
Fantastic.
Yeah, a lot of great courses.
Yeah,
that's the beauty of it.
We'd love to have you out here.
I'm going to definitely make a trip out there in the next little bit. But you can point to the four corners, whether northeast, west, or south, and you're going to find some great golf courses around the globe. So, guys, thanks for joining me here on Golf Talk Live. And if you're interested in finding out more about GolfMDs, you can visit their website at www.golfmds.com, and that's mds.com, and find out a little bit more about them. Thanks, guys, for joining me, and I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Ted. Take care.
Take care, Ted. Thank you. Bye.
All right, have a great evening, guys. Have a great weekend.
Yep.
Okay, that was my guest this evening, of course, Alex Weber, the founder and CEO of GolfMDs.com, and, of course, Nick Chertock, Director of Community at GolfMDs.com. Great couple of guys. We talked a little bit about the business, but we wanted to chat a little bit about golf tonight, and I appreciate those guys for coming on. And if you want to, if you missed any of the episode, make sure that you visit blogtalkradio.com and go up into the search key and type in Golf Talk Live, and you can listen to the broadcast in its entirety. We had some great conversation, talking a little bit about Tiger, of course, and that's my lovely assistant that let me know that the show's about to end. So I want to thank you all for tuning in each and every week here on Golf Talk Live, every Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Time. And I want to thank my special guest again, Alex Weber, CEO and founder of GolfMDs.com, and, of course, Nick Chertock, Director of Community at GolfMDs.com. Thanks, guys, for joining in the conversation. And as I said, you're always welcome to come back on Golf Talk Live. Have a great week, everybody, And I will see you next Thursday, Central Standard Time, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Golf Talk Live. God bless everybody and have a great weekend.